Hey, what's up guys? Now today we're going to be talking about phones and which one's going to be right for you. Now I know that for a lot of people they might just not be interested in phones that much, but this video will be helpful for any type of consumer, from the people who are just not interested and just want a simple phone all the way to the really power users and the people who use phones a lot throughout their day. So this video is going to be broken down into categories and we'll go through which phone is right for each person. By the way, if you don't feel like watching through the whole video, there will be timestamps in the description, which is basically things right down in the description just there, which you can click on and you'll be able to skip to the part in the video which is most interesting or useful to you. Now this first category is going to have a sort of joint winner because I found that there are two phones that kind of apply to the same audience but are just ever so slightly different. Now if you don't have much money to spend or just like something that will last you, the Moto G6 or Moto G6 Play by Motorola will be the best options for you in my opinion. Now the G6 is slightly more expensive than the G6 Play, but it is slightly better in almost every way and we'll go over that right now. Now the G6 has a mid-range processor which will keep your phone running pretty smoothly for the next few years to come. It has a really nice screen which is great for watching movies and any of your YouTube videos at their full resolutions due to the fact that it is a 1080p screen, which is what you would consider as full HD. Now the G6 also has 3 or 4 gigabytes of RAM, which basically means you'll be able to keep all your apps open in the background. So say you're opening a few different apps, you'll be able to keep scrolling through all these right here and open the ones you had open earlier on at the exact same point where you left off, so you don't have to reload them, which is great. But these depend on the storage options, so 3 gigabytes of RAM for 32 gigabytes of storage, and if you go ahead and get the 64 gigabyte model, that will mean you'll get 4 gigabytes of RAM. Both of them are quite a lot of capacity for general use, but if you really are going to have a lot of apps or videos or anything like that on your phone, you would want to go for the 64 gigabyte model, which is just slightly more expensive. Now the price for the G6 is £180 for the 32 gigabyte model and £199 or just £200 for the 64 gigabyte model at the moment on Amazon. But this definitely does depend on sales, as earlier on, as a few weeks back, for a family friend I managed to pick one up for around £150 to £160, which is a great deal, and this does depend on the time of the year, as you can definitely get a few good sales on these phones. But if all you're looking for is battery life and don't care much about screen quality, how fast it is, or if it's got an amazing camera or anything, then definitely check out the G6 Play, due to the fact that it has a slightly lower resolution screen, still HD, just not full HD, so your videos won't look as crisp, but your photos are still reasonably good. The camera's not amazing though, neither of these cameras are great, it's just the G6 Play is going to be slightly worse. It also does not have as fast a processor. Now if you don't care as much about screen quality, speed, or the camera, the G6 Play might be a better option. The G6 Play does have an advantage in the battery area. So it has 4000 mAh battery, which is quite a bit more than the G6, which basically means that you'll be able to keep your phone running for much longer periods, so throughout the day and maybe even onto the next day, which is a great thing to have. And the G6 Play comes in at about £150, with sales sometimes bringing it down to around £120, £130 on Amazon, which is a great price for a phone. So if you're really wanting to go budget, that is the one I would definitely recommend. Now also, if you've got a friend and they're looking for a new phone, this is just a great phone to just say, hey, if you really don't mind about too many things, it's a great phone to just go ahead and recommend to them, as it's just basic and it works. Now to follow on from this, maybe you're just really tech savvy, but still are kind of on a budget and want to get a reasonably fast phone, but still for a pretty good price. Now this is where the Pocophone F1 comes in. Now I know it's quite a weird name, but just don't worry about that. Now it's extremely fast and fluid due to the fact that it has 6 gigabytes of RAM and a top-end processor, which is called the Snapdragon 835. Don't worry if you don't know what that means, but basically it's just an extremely fast phone. Now this phone also comes with 128 gigabytes of storage, which is amazing for storing all your movies, your apps, your music, anything on your phone. It also has a full HD screen and a 4000 mAh battery, which is a great battery and will last you a really long time, sometimes even 2 days once again. And all of this for only £280 on Amazon, which is amazing for a price. You used to not even be able to get this on Amazon. You used to have to pay for the shipping costs from China or wherever else it was coming from. You used to have to get it off these different sites, which would have really long delivery times. So this is an amazing phone, especially now, to go ahead and grab. Now, for getting a phone at this price, the manufacturer's definitely going to have to cut some corners in some places. And in this phone, it's definitely the camera and the build quality. So the camera's just not going to be the best of quality, but still good enough for most people. And some people don't even care about the camera. So in that case, it'd be great. and the build is not the best, as in it's made out of plastic, so not that metal and glass like most phones are nowadays. But if you chuck it in a case, well, it's plasticky anyway, so it's no problem and no big deal. But definitely, even though it may not feel like a premium phone, for the price you're getting the speed and power of a top-end phone. So this is a great option for those maybe techier people out there. Now, let's say you're someone who just wants the best phone in every single category. Well, this is where the Samsung Galaxy Note 9 comes in. Now, most people, when they hear Samsung, they think of all their low-end phones, because that's what Samsung does sell most of, all of their low-end phones, and so that's what you see people having in general, and they're just not very good. But if you go to their top-end phones, they are actually amazing. So the Note 9 right here is their flagship phone at the moment, which is literally amazing in nearly every single way. Now, just a disclaimer before I talk about this. At the moment on Amazon, I found a few deals on it for about £650 to £700, which is actually a really good price for this phone. But if you're looking at most of the listings, it's going to be about £900 or £899 for this phone, which is a lot of money for a flagship phone. But if you want the best, you're going to have to pay for the best. And obviously you could go for a contract, so it might be a bit different for you. This phone has a huge battery, really good dual cameras, which basically means you can get this blurry background effect, which is great, all the way to having an amazing processor and a huge amount of RAM, which means that you can again multitask on your phone, which is great, and everything's going to run really smoothly. Now, the only drawback with this phone, which is really unusual, most phones have more than one big drawback. Now, the only drawback, the really nitpicky drawback right here, is Samsung's Experience OS. So basically what it is that on all Android phones, so anything other than an iPhone, usually Google has created Android and has a way that they like it to be. Now, with Samsung, they decided to cover that up with what's called a skin, and that basically means that they've added a few features, and it's great in some ways, but this one feels slightly clunky and is a bit overcrowded with features, so it has a bit too much in my opinion, and it ends up just not being that useful in every single way and kind of slowing down your everyday tasks just a little bit. But other than this, this phone is amazing. Now, other than this phone has everything you'd need. It even has a stylus, so basically this little pen which clicks inside of the phone. It's called the S Pen by Samsung, and lets you do some drawings on your phone or just take some really quick notes by writing on your screen, which is an amazing feature to have, and you don't get that in many other phones. So basically, if you want the best of the best, this is the way to go, because it does everything extremely well. Now, if you love Apple products, and that's not a bad thing, I have a MacBook myself and I love using it, then the iPhone XR, or some people would call it the XR, is the best phone for you if you're on a slight budget. It's just as fast as all of Apple's top-end phones, so their 10 and their XS and their XS Max, due to the fact that it has the exact same processor as them. But the only real drawback is that the screen quality is not going to be as good, and you may notice that in a few circumstances. But the actual screen quality is not actually any worse than what you would have found on your iPhone 6 or your iPhone 6s screen. So it's not actually the biggest deal ever, and it's just the screen. So it's just not going to be looking as good or as crisp when you're watching videos, since it will not be full HD. Now, the price of this phone, even though I called it a budget phone and Apple themselves seem to kind of market it as their budget phone, it's still £750 off their website, which is a lot, especially for the minimum storage model. I mean, it's Apple, so you're going to have to pay for the Apple experience, but that is their budget phone of the lineup for this year. But if you find that's too much for you, that's definitely understandable. Take it back a few years and you can have a look at their old lineups from the past few years on their website, and you'll see that they still are selling the iPhone 8 series and even the iPhone 7 series. So a great option could be to just go ahead and buy an iPhone 8 off their website for £600, or even if you want to go even more Apple budget, let's say the iPhone 7 for £450 off their site is also a great option. Now, as you step down, the speed is definitely going to decrease since the processors aren't as fast, but the screen quality in all of these three phones is very similar, so there's nothing to worry about in that aspect. All these iPhones have reasonable battery. The XR does have the best, as it's the newest, and it has a reasonably big battery. But other than that, they're all very fast and will be great for just a general Apple user. And just as a disclaimer, I would recommend not buying anything older than an iPhone 7 now at the end of 2018 or the start of 2019 if you're watching this then. An iPhone 7 is the oldest I'd say to go, since the iPhone 6s, which is the model before the 7, is starting to become quite outdated. So thanks so much for watching this little video here, guys. I hope you managed to take something from it, and if not, go ahead and share it with a friend and maybe they can take something from it. So thanks a lot for watching. Check out my social media pages on the next screen, and I will see you in the next video.